Welcome back to the second last episode of the Football Fanatic podcast after the 24-25 season. I'm joined by Dan, and Deck is hiding after losing to Crystal Palace in the FA Cup final, which I'm not going to lie, I wasn't expecting. And we'll hopefully get the crowd back together for a end of season review next week. And Dan, I suppose before we get to the end of the season, how, what did you make? I suppose first of all, had you a nice weekend? Did you enjoy just like having no pressure? There was no, do we need to win this weekend? Any of that jazz?
Yeah, no, it was a good weekend. There was a lot going on with the FA Cup finals. Last home game at Goodison. One or two games then that really I probably shouldn't have watched that I watched, like the West Ham Forest game, which I knew was just going to be not a great game, but that's obviously Forest. It was a big 3 points at stake for them. But yeah, no, it's a strange feeling though to be for the last 2 months pretty much been sitting on just not a whole lot left to play for. Disappointing from a European perspective, I think, to have not gone further in the Champions League. But it's definitely a strange feeling to be kind of having no pressure, no, as you said there, no kind of worries or stresses really. When an awful lot of clubs like yourself
Yeah.
will have a bit of stress with tomorrow night. Deck had a bit of stress there going on with the weekend. It still has a bit of stress for what might happen tonight in the game with Bournemouth, and I suppose Howard is just a stressed man in general. So.
Yep, it's just a constant state of existence for that man. Uh, um, but look, he'll be happy enough. Arsenal got their win that kind of
Yeah,
puts
it was
them
it was a good win.
guaranteed there. So it was a big win in terms of them getting second. I think just the way things have gone this season. But um, I suppose we'll focus in more so on the FA Cup, Dan, and it's. I suppose I had to watch it afterwards. I was at a wedding, but I think more so than the football, it was the scenes of like Palace fans of all ages in
Mm.
tears, celebrating. Some of them just looked like they didn't know what to do,
There was a
and
lot of shock, I think.
it was shock. And it was just
Yeah.
it was a great moment. It was one of those things you're watching and you're like, this is why I love this sport, like just to see
Mm.
the response that you get out of people. I suppose Everton Goodison's send off was something similar to that, but um you saw bits and bobs of it, and like, was it the fair result? Was it just a case of they got the goal and they held on, or were they the deserving winners in the end?
Yeah, if you kind of rewind back to the game that they had a few weeks previous, and for the guts of the first half of that game, Palace probably should have been out of sight. So they had a game plan. It wasn't too dissimilar, except I think they really done well by having Mark Gay back, even though I know he went off injured during the game. But I think that he is a big player for them, a huge player for them. Whether or not they'll be able to hold on to or not, I don't know. But to be honest with you, it was a carbon copy of what we've seen of Man City an awful lot this season. I felt where it was, they lacked the bite in the final third. They don't seem to have, even though they had the players on the pitch that could do it, De Bruyne, Silva, it just didn't seem to be able to carve out enough chances. They did have some, and Henderson had a really good game, but they're just so suspect. That goal that they conceded, long ball up to Mateta, he took it down out wide to Munoz, who was the best player on the pitch by a country mile. And that goal that they've conceded is goals they've conceded all season, without Rodri. And not just Rodri, but like it was so easy the goal that Palace got. They're very easy to get at that back four. And although they did have chances, the penalty was a strange one too. Haaland, from what Pep said afterwards, was the penalty taker on the day, but gave it to Omar. It was that was in a sense was
What do you
bizarre.
make of that, Dan? Like, why would Haaland, like a prolific goal scorer who always wants goals,
Yeah,
hand away a penalty in on the biggest stage? I just like I assumed that was a Pep decision when he did it.
I thought so too until he came out afterwards and said that he doesn't know what happened. Is what he said in the press conference afterwards that Haaland was the penalty taker. And even if you were going to say like who would take it, you could argue and say De Bruyne because it's he's on the way out of City and maybe if he was going to, but to give it to Omar, not saying that it wasn't the worst penalty I've ever seen. It was a great save, but it didn't make any sense to me. And like he was pretty much non-existent, Haaland, for the majority of the game, and we've seen a lot of them performances this season with him too, where he's not really in the game. and he wasn't really in it. But it was a very strange scenario. I know Arsenal, I think, were nearly one of the first sides to start that trend of, where one player has the ball, they hand it to someone else, and they hand it to someone else to kind of keep the goalkeeper guessing. Arsenal done it a bit
Yes,
where it
yeah.
was like Saka was taking them, and then Odegaard was taking them 1 week, and then it was Saka. Like, it was a weird kind of thing where you just think on a week to week basis, you have your penalty taker, whether unless he's gone on a run of missing plenty, you stick with the one person. And Alan, I know he has missed one or two this season, but in general, like as you said there, like
He's,
the player that he is,
yeah, like
he's a great
he's nearly be
striker of a ball.
disappointed by, uh, I suppose, the mindset that portrays that
Mm,
he didn't feel comfortable taking about it. That's what I read into it, that he didn't feel comfortable taking it in a final. And you're like, you're supposed to be one of the best strikers in the world. You're supposed to feel in those moments, not shy away from them.
mm,
And I suppose maybe it is a reflection of kind of where the Man City mindset is at. But it is a huge loss in that they're going to be down after that, and they've got a huge game, as you said, tonight. And like, if
yeah.
they don't get a result tonight against Bournemouth, which are a team that have pushed them consistently over the last 2 or 3 seasons, they're really risking Champions League. And if they don't get Champions League, then it's an absolute disaster of a season in terms of the rebuild that is required. So uh, the only other thing I could say in City's defence, I suppose, if I stay on the game before I get too distracted, is Dean Henderson probably should have been sent off. What did you make of the handball outside
Yeah,
the
if
box?
again, if we're going by the letter of the law, as I
Mm.
know gets, and this is where we've questioned a couple of the letter of the laws and whether they were reds or not reds. But yeah, I could see why that one could have been given, because Hallam was kind of going around the keeper. He probably would have had a shot at goal, and I'm sure not the Palace defenders would have get back. I don't know. Like, do you think it was blatant by Henderson, or was it just a bit
No,
of
but I
panic? Do you think?
suppose I think it was a bit of panic, and like it was on
Yeah,
the edge. Like you could, like in the split second, you could think, oh, I'm in. You could easily be like, I'm in the box here. But like
yeah,
for VAR to not, I suppose the whole point of VAR is that they make the judgment
yeah,
call on those high things, and it's like, I don't know. It seems like another nail in a coffin of a thing that's never going to be buried. Like, it just, I found it very frustrating, and from a Deck's point of view, I could understand it.
mm,
Um, like if he gets that red card, which but letter law, which is what the ref is supposed to implement,
yeah.
they have an extra man, and they like, it could have given them
They
their
probably would have won, I think, if
another
that
FA
had
Cup.
happened.
Like, yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
think.
they would have,
Yeah,
like.
yeah. No, it is. It was a big. It was a big call. It was a big decision. And yeah, probably again going by what the letter of the law, it was red. Of course, I'm sitting here going, glad it wasn't given, because it would have
Yeah,
ruined the
exactly. It
game.
would have ruined it. Yeah.
And as you said,
But
the scenes of the
As a City fan,
yeah,
you
of
could definitely
course.
feel hard judged. But look, I think if Palace were going to win that game, they were always going to need that little bit of luck to go
Yeah,
their way.
but I did think Mossy, and I would have said in the podcast here in the build up to it, that like, regardless of who City played in the final, like you're going off the fact that they've been in so many finals, they've won so much, they know how to win. But actually, on the basis of their form, like if you look at it, like even since they spent the money that they spent, the players that they spent the money on, they pulled two of them out of the side. They're not even playing them. Like, you know what I mean? Two of the whole conversation was they were getting these players in to guarantee themselves a part of the rebuild, of course, but also guarantee themselves Champions League football. But two of them aren't playing. And when you look at, like, I did think it was a very attacking lineup. And I think he said Cavendish was injured, so it's fair enough. He was probably limited in the maybe midfield area as to who else he could play. But like when you just look at their team, like, they need a number of players. I definitely felt that whoever they played in the final had a good chance against them. So I wasn't massively shocked that Palace went and bet them, to be honest with you, because as I said, if you look at some of the games they played, like even thinking like back to the Derby game against United, how poor it was, a poor match. But like City at home, their last two results then, like where they scraped a win against Wolves and they drew away at Southampton. It's not as if they're in this kind of rich vein of form where you'd like really fancy them, that there's this kind of
Yeah,
rhetoric that's been going around for quite a while over the last couple of months. The City were back. They're not back, and they need definitely. I think when they're looking at it at the weekend, about 6 players, and they've already bought 3 in summer, and I still think they need another 6. To be honest with you, when you look at what's on show, they have a few lads that maybe they might come on. Like Sabino maybe might be better next season. Doku for me is one. It's just at times he goes by players like they're not even there, and it's unreal to watch when he does that. but like his numbers don't lie in regards assists, goals. You know what I mean? Like whether or not he's up to the level, he's had that was this was his second year, wasn't it? So where Savinho's in his
I would say
first.
so, yeah.
Yeah, and then like lads like the lad that even come on, I never heard of him. They come on, they did bring Grealish on the ground. Some lad that I don't know if you'd heard of him. I'd never heard of him. They come on for City the weekend, so it's definitely there's going to be a big summer there for them, and it's and again Bournemouth tonight. You know, I think Bournemouth are kind of suit City in a way, though. I just think it's more open. City have really struggled against teams that have just sat, like Southampton a few weeks ago. They managed to get their act together and just sat behind the ball and made it as difficult as possible. And once Palace had the goal, they very much did that. And they did it very well, I thought. That the defender. There was a few outstanding performances, I think, individually. I think Wharton in midfield is a player that I
He's
can't.
an
I'd be very
excellent player.
surprised. Yeah, I'd be very surprised if there's not a few looking at him in the summer. Munoz at right back. When you look at like that right wing back position, whether it be United or other clubs, he looks like he could do a fantastic job. So the problem with Palace within that is it kind of highlights some of these great stars that they do have, and whether or not they'll be able to hold on to them. Like their captain Marquis as well, like he was in hot demand last summer. Can they hold on to them? So it's because it is
I, I,
interesting.
I
Like
guess though, from a Palace point of view, they are now in a position though that they're going to be in they're going to be in the Europa
yeah,
League. Like,
100%.
from financial point of view, that's a more income, and it also is probably widens their appeal in terms of who they can bring in if they were to
Yeah,
lose some, like they lost Elise last year, and was a massive player for them, and they've
mm,
dealt with it pretty well. You saw the struggle at the start of the season with a few injuries and stuff, but I think Eze is incredibly important there, and it's a lot of it will depend on is he still there at the end of it, because
yeah,
he scored some vital goals and he's given that kind of free role. The way the system is, that he seems to be really enjoying that freedom that he has, that not he won't necessarily get at other clubs. So it'll be about finding a balance, I suppose, for them to see how do they use this to propel themselves forward.
yeah. It is very much as you said there. Like I think I mentioned on the pod there about his release clause. I think he's one that he'd get into most of the top sides, first 11. I think he's that good. I think he suffered like a lot of players that went to the tournament with England. That there were a lot of them came back and they weren't right. And I think he
Yeah.
was one of them as well. Tete as well was at the Olympics. He came back and wasn't really properly integrated back into the side in the early part of the season. And Nketiah just never really caught a light for them as the kind of replacement there when Mateta's not available or whatever. So there's definitely work to be done if they could hold on to their players and add a couple of additions. Like they'd have a decent run in Europe, I think. When you look at the Europa
Yeah.
League, Glasner looks like a manager that he's proven his worth. So yeah, it was great. Look, it's great. I'm not a massive fan, as you know, of the FA Cup, but it is great when you see underdogs like that. And like again, Newcastle did earlier on in the season that as well. Like when you see good fan bases like that, like Palace and that as well. It is a nice scene and definitely look. It won't hurt City that much. They've won so much over the last number of years, but I think it's the bigger picture with them. They're going to lose KGB, and there's other players. I think Silva's going to be leaving as well. And it's just there's a lot of new players that they need to bring in, a lot of fresh blood, and it likes the Grealish and a couple of other lads might be in trouble as well.
Yeah, as you look at it, and the way I suppose Pep is a thing so I don't know, downtrodden and out of sorts, and the team just not adapting or changing really, which is very not it's not what you associate with a Pep Guardiola team. Um, it's kind of a worrying trend, really, going into what is going to be another rebuild. Does he really have the appetite for that? We'll have to wait and see. But
Yeah, it's a good point though, because Klopp got out, and it was that kind of knowing when the manager looks like he looks tired. I know he's a lot good on his
yeah,
personal life, when you look at him, some of his antics, and it's been going on for a couple of years that I haven't liked, but just even in his demeanour, he doesn't look happy. There's obviously the trial results still to come, and that I'm sure is a big heavy weight as well on everyone at the club as to what the outcome is going to be. It's going to bring with it, at the very least, media attention that he doesn't need in his life. Do you know what I mean? He's going to be asked
yeah,
some amount of questions once that comes out, as well. And yeah, it's definitely look. There is a transition there. I mean, when you look at them now, for me, I'd be amazed if they were in a title race next year. Now, look, they could go and spend a chunk of change and have a different conversation come August, but at the moment, I just couldn't see. I wouldn't have that much faith that they'd be back challenging next season.
Yeah. And I suppose it's kind of a season where we've seen unusual cup victories. We've had Newcastle win the Carabao Cup. We've had Palace win the FA Cup, which makes me rather nervous as we look
Yeah.
towards tomorrow night. It's PSG in the final of the Champions League. It seems like it's the year of the people, kind of the unexpected winners, and it's leaving me in
Mm.
a very uncomfortable position when I start thinking about tomorrow night. We face Spurs in the final Europa League. Um, some great stories going around about people traveling there. One fella got a barge and is making his way across the Bay of Biscay in a barge because he couldn't afford the
Yeah.
flight. And he's going to arrive in Bilbao maybe 15, 20 minutes before kickoff if he keeps up his current pace. So there's some great stories of people traveling, etc.
Mm.
And it's 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 an impossible. I find it maybe I suppose I'm so emotionally invested in it, but I find it such a difficult game to call as to where it could go because you've got two basket case of teams, neither of them performing at any sort of a level. United unbeaten in Europe for some ungodly reason nobody understands because all they
They
seem
have a
to do is
really
get
good
beaten
defensive
in the
record
Premier
as
League.
well, isn't it? They're like a really good
They're
defensive record in
it's
Europe.
it's
Yeah.
everything that is bad in the Premier League is has been
Yeah.
the opposite in the Europa League. So what what's your feeling going into it? I know you've had like it'd be a typical United thing, but like as you've got closer, I've got more and more apprehensive.
Yeah, I do think that besides, if you were to ask me about when you're looking at both teams, after Bruno, I think that Kubiceski arguably is the second best player across both sides, and he's out. I do
Yeah,
think that's a big blow for them, and their creativity with Madison being out too. I just look at what their midfield will probably look like, which would probably be maybe would it be Bentancur, Sarr, and Basuma, and it's a workman like midfield. So I would have a concern about first as to where the creativity is going to come from on the night. So I would be edging more to United based on just them couple of injuries that they would have picked up. But there's no doubt when two English teams meet, as has happened in Champions League finals in recent years, there's always a kind of a real uncertainty, isn't there, when it's two English clubs? It's just there's something different about it. There's different emotion involved in the game. Obviously, it's a side as well that you know very well, as opposed to a club that you may or may not have played over the last number of years in Europe. So, like the two teams, of course, know each other very well. Spurs have the recent record. Is it three in a row, two in a row,
they've
three in
won
a
the
row?
last three. Yeah, no, last three against United. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and the one that stands out for me was the one at Old Trafford where Madison ran the show, and Kuleski, they were two of their best players, and I think the game at Old Trafford earlier in the season. So I look, I still think United will win it. Not I don't buy in as much so as you mentioned about the basket cases, Mas, because I don't buy in as much as others are to. I've listened to a lot of pundits and Man United pundits, or not even just United pundits, but United associations, but the kind of thing of they know how to win, like they've won in the past. Because I
mm.
just look at both sides and I'm like, as you said, they're likely if neither of them go behind, and I don't think United going behind against Spurs that suddenly there's this kind of like, oh, they know how to win, so they come back and win
Oh God, no.
mentality in that team. Nor do I see it with Spurs. I just think that there's so much, as you said, so much emotion involved. There's like you were talking about stories of people getting to the bow. We have so much stories within this match. It came out there in the media. Was it yesterday before that Amrin was talking that he tried to basically hand in his notice there, which is I don't think is even getting as much media attention as it should be because obviously the final is here. But that's stark. I thought the fact that he had to be nearly talked into staying. You have Pascagli talking about his second season wonder. I still think that from what I've been reading in the last week and a half, I think that they nearly have somebody else in place. I don't know about you for next season. I
Oh
think he's
yeah,
gone
I
regardless.
think it gives
You
him an
know,
opportunity to have his mic drop moment and saying, "I told you I
yeah.
win something. Good luck. Fuck you,
But
Dan Levy," and out you go. Like,
yeah, we have so many stories. You have Maguire there, who's just this revelation in Europe this season, and his kind of comeback story in that as well. And then of course the financial aspect of it and what it gives in regards to Spurs with a trophy, which they've been absolutely, I don't know for how many years, bet with a shovel as to not winning anything and not being able to get a team over the line. And then United, who the financial aspect of what the Champions League gives them. So there's so much at play that emotion has to be in the game. You talk about like players that have been there, like Casemiro, who's won numerous Champions Leagues. But I think on the night that it'll be who handles that better, the actual pressure of the occasion. And I wouldn't be siding either way, to be honest with you, because you said basket case is a great way to describe both of them. Look what happened with Leon, and United were cruising. It was going so well, and like that, it turns like really quickly can turn like that. And Spurs this season, you just can't trust. They've put in too many stinkers as well, so it's really set up as here as a neutral for me anyway. Like I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know, like when Liverpool have been in the Europa League final, I don't think I've ever actually been excited about watching the Europa League
Yeah,
final. But I'm excited about tomorrow night, and of course for whoever loses, regardless of it, is it's like they're just going to be in for a really miserable a few weeks and into the summer, I think, as well. For either manager, it's huge. Like it's amazing how something like that can turn it. Like even not just not it's not going to turn the disappointment of the league campaign this season for United, for example, but just how it could turn mentality maybe of some that maybe aren't believers of Amran, because
yeah,
there's no doubt some of them exist based on the amount of games they've lost. There's no doubt that they're not all on his side. Um, and then what it means for maybe some of them, like, in regards what they might be able to bring in, but also even some of their star players and keeping them, as well. I know there's been talk of clubs being interested in Bruno, um, things like that as well. So there is huge implications, and I still am anyway. I think United will win, and in particular with the Spurs injuries there that they've got. I do think they're bad ones for them. That they've lost.
yeah, yeah. That's equivalent to United losing Bruno for their creativity, like as in they don't have anyone like Odebert is probably going to be in around there, and he hasn't like I know he's a lot of injuries this season, but you wouldn't put him on the same level as Kulieski and Madison, I suppose. Yeah, there's so many it's buts, maybes. There's so many stories woven into it, but at the end of the day, I think it's coming down to a club like Spurs who want to be a big club. They've got the big stadium, and then
Mm.
the, if they don't get themselves back in the Champions League, what are they? They've
Mm.
got a nice stadium, but what are they? And United is just pure finance. And I suppose as a player,
Yeah.
I think it's harder. I suppose as a player, they're probably not thinking about it in terms of finance. They just want to play Champions League football next year. But you are looking at a situation where if United don't win, which is a realistic possibility. If you asked me a couple of years ago against Spurs, like, "Phew, they're going to beat Spurs," like, but Spurs have annihilated the season, and the only thing that gives me any sort of hope is the most Spursy thing to do will be beat United three times and then lose when you really had to beat them.
Yeah.
Um, but like there are players there who will get serious financial bonuses if they manage to get themselves into the Champions League.
Huge,
Cas
yeah.
Casemiro, right? There's stories circulating that Casemiro's wages will jump by nearly 150 grand, making him nearly 500,000 if they get into the Champions League.
Insane, isn't it? That's insane.
And I read it and I was like, no wonder he's been so good in the bloody Europa League since. Um, but like there's those undercurrents and to give Amron an opportunity to bring in players that can actually play his system. Like I guess when we're chatting about him, like I've kind of tried to be positive all the time in the group, and you're like, you're about the only United fan who's saying you see progress. And I suppose what I'm seeing is that I have a figurehead again at the club who
Mm.
speaks honestly, who treats people well, but also demands a lot out of them. And it's the first time I've felt as a fan since Ferguson left that there was this kind of authoritative figure who was also well able to charm you if you needed to
Yeah.
in the position. And there's things like Garnacho who refused to square the ball, starting to realize that he can give assists. He doesn't have to shoot all the time. Like he hasn't executed all consistently, but there are those little things move of glimmers here and there that I think are the best you can hope for in a season that was pretty much done already when he came in. When he clearly said that he didn't want it till the end season. There's like those sorts
Mm.
of elements are where I'm at, and that's why I suppose I'm trying to be as supportive of him as possible. And if he can give himself say, well, look, I'm after winning the Europa League, that gives you that authority to say, well, I'm a European Cup winner that you just don't have until you get over the line with that. So for a
Mm.
whole club basis for a future, it's very important. But I feel like it's also history repeating himself. I felt like this was me before the FA Cup final last year, where we were out of Europe, and if we didn't win, weren't getting the European. You weren't going to be in the Europa
Mm.
League. We weren't have any Europe.
Yeah,
We wouldn't
yeah,
have
yeah.
any money coming in like that. So it feels like 2 seasons in a row that you're just going to the last possible resort to try and keep things afloat, and it's that level of desperation the way things have gone at United that you're like it's not sustainable. You can't keep pulling it out of the bag like this. So it needs going to be if they don't win, it's not that I'm going to have any less faith in Amron. I just think, as you said, he loses a bit of that authority, that notch in his belt that he can pull out when he needs to and use as a bargaining tool for what he needs for next to change the team
Mm.
and improve them. So
Definitely in having Diallo back, I think he's come back at the right time because in the pieces I've seen of him since he's come back though, like he just that he was his best player, probably best player I think before he got injured. He really
yeah,
was the bright spark, and I think he's come back at an important time. I think he could have a big role to play in that final because he's something that United just don't have. I think he's clinical. I think he's clinical enough when he gets in. When he gets in, he's more clinical I think, than a lot of the others that they have. And like he can beat men for fun. Like he's a capture player, and he's
he
only going
offers
to get better.
an outlet that
Yeah.
usually only comes from Bruno. He's calm on
Mm,
the ball. He's able to take it and the turn. He's able to go by people. He has the pace. He's pretty physical for the size of him. He's
mm,
even pretty all right in the air considering his height. And he works hard. Like so, he's got a huge amount of positives that he brings to the team. I think Mount is gives a lot of energy if he can, I suppose, feed off his semi-final performance at Old Trafford and bring that. There's another option you have in your attacking 10. Um, Xerxes is supposed to be fit enough to take part, so there's a boost. So there are more options, I suppose, United than we would have expected, and maybe
mm.
more options than what Spurs have at the minute with the way their injury lists have gone. So there's a couple of things like that
Yeah.
might swing in their favor.
And I suppose there is a bit of positivity that came out yesterday as well, just on I suppose United, and I was surprised, but it is a massive coup for them that Cunha seems to be a done deal. Like I think he'd start for me for most of the top sides going to be in Europe next year. He'd start for most of them. He'd definitely start or even Arsenal on the left side there ahead of Martinelli. Like I think he's a really good player. I know people talk about attitude and things like that, but in regards to quality. I'm just surprised that he picked United. Like there was other clubs in from him. Apparently, he wanted to go to United. I just thought it was bizarre given before the Europa League final. Fair enough if they win it and are in
Yeah.
Champions League football next season. I just thought it was come out already where it mightn't necessarily be in Europe next season, and the place could be a bit
I
fucking
suppose
miserable to be
I
around.
thought,
But great
yeah,
signing.
I saw that coming out and I did think it, and then I thought, well, sure, he was going to be at Wolves anyway, and they weren't going to be in Europe, so he just and
But
he's a lifelong
but
United fan, and I suppose
he
people
is,
go
yeah,
like Arsenal and stuff, so I think it's definitely an emotional decision by him, and he seems like he's that kind of an emotional guy. So
yeah, yeah,
it's a big fee considering United's financial situation. If they were to lose tomorrow, it'll leave them in a very much they'll have to sell position really.
yeah.
So like you could be talking about Kobe Mainu or Garnacho's future
I think
on the
I think
wing.
that yeah, I have a feeling. I have a feeling that Garnacho could be the one. I still think the likes of Chelsea or other clubs might come back in for him. I kind of see him playing in that 10 off that kind of left side of a 10 where kind of Garnacho was played, hasn't he, this season? He's kind of been playing off
Yeah.
that. And I could see that. And that could be nearly like for like, because he probably gets similar enough ish money
Yeah.
for
And to be fair,
Garnacho as well. Yeah.
Garnacho, like to be fair, Cunha has played the system before. He's more
Yeah.
familiar with it. He's well able to do it. He's experienced and a proven track record of goals and assists in the Premier League. So, like, you can see the decision. You can see
Garnacho
there
is a
is
4
logic here.
4 a 4-4-3 or a 4-3-3.
Player, yeah, he's a left. He's a
He
winger.
is. Yeah.
He needs to be coming in from the outside. And I suppose as much as though he's young and has been trying to adapt and has made progress, like I think in understanding that role, it just seems like he's the logic. He's going to be make the one to make way, which I don't know how I feel about because you bought him and he's so much talent,
Mm,
but I suppose there's been a lack of end product. I suppose a lot of the time this year, he does miss a lot of chances, and now he just can't afford to continue to do that. As a 20-year-old, that could probably more than likely improve, but
mm.
it's not one I suppose that sits easy with you as a United fan if that's the player that you sell. But we need kind of instant improvement, and I
But,
suppose
but,
you're going to go with the
yeah.
tried test.
What do you think of the lap now as with your Ipswich chat here now as well? For me, I'm not surprised that clubs are looking at him. I would be concerned as to like what his role is. Is his role going to lead the line for United, and are you going to be in another Ireland situation potentially? Like the lap has looked good, but again, I suppose in a side where the expectations were very low. Now I
Yeah.
don't think the fee is astronomical, but what's your feeling on the lap?
To be honest, Dan, I don't really like it.
Okay.
I don't think it's the right fit. For the way Amron likes to play Mateta style, like that
Mm,
layup hit to Mateta and layout to that type of
yeah, yeah.
goal is what Amron wants in his centre forward, as well as making those runs in behind. And like he's very fast, but his best goals and most goals came on the counter for Ipswich, where he was just using raw pace into space, and you can see like how that as an attribute Haaland had, but doesn't really have in the team that have the ball most of the time. And
Mm,
I'm concerned as to how he fits. He went to the championship. He struggled in two loan spells in the championship. He's had one good season in the Premier League. Fair enough, he does have that behind him, but he's coming in where your main striker is a 23-year-old who's scored basically what 6 or 7 goals a season, and he's his understudy. Like it doesn't
mm,
seem the right fit for what they need. Even
yeah,
if like I think Mateta
I think
would
so.
be
I mean,
similar.
yeah.
Would like if you're going for Cunha because you want instant improvement, then Mateta's where you're going, or someone of a similar ilk. Like, not that I would love Mateta, but I do think he offers more to a system and is a senior player where Highland can learn from and develop, maybe. But
Mm.
Highland so far in the deep end of this stage, it's hard to see him turning around at Old Trafford either. So it's look, maybe he has the temperament to handle it, but having seen what has happened to Highland over the last year, 2 years, it's hard to see another younger striker as your main purchase being the solution to the goals problems United have.
Yeah, I mean, with you there, I was surprised that a club as big as United. Like I could see Delap maybe at a West Ham, or do you know what I mean, or like somebody who needs a striker, but maybe not at the top tier level in regards what will be expected. It's the expectation part, He goes into
Yeah.
United there. Like, I suppose, like, is it just another like for like in the sense of they may sell Rashford? What's the fee for Delap? Was it
I think it's
40-ish?
in the 40ish, yeah, and
Yeah,
Rashford's agreed fee
it's
is
40, is
40.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah. So you
yeah,
wonder, is there a bit of just kind of balancing the numbers and the books of it that it'll be one in and one out? I feel that if you're left, like, as you said, to Lap and Highland, they need someone who's tried and tested, don't they? Like, just to lead the
yeah,
line, even if it's only for a 2 year period, but just
yeah,
somebody that can come in and will just. I'm thinking of like lads that have done that with the past. Remember Henrik Larsson come in for a while. There's been lads have done that where
yeah.
they've brought a player in just even for a couple of years, and I do think that that's what is what they need now. And then, as you said, then that the likes of the lap can feed off, can see in training. Do you know what I mean? Like there is a
Yeah.
yeah. I'm just
There isn't
surprised that
that
it's
like as
United
in
that are, and then whether or not there's a bit of Kieran McKenna connections involved in that, I don't know.
yeah, but
Yeah.
like look, he's the sort of player that you don't know how it could turn out to be a phenomenal purchase. I
Mm,
just would have those reservations before anything goes any further. But there does seem to be seems to have been face to face talks, and it
yeah.
seems like there is serious interest there. And I wonder if fee is part of the interest in that it's only 40 million for a
Yeah.
player who's only 21, 22. So that could be part of their model, etc., going forward. So it'll be interesting to see what how it progresses. But you must be happy enough in terms of transfers so far, Dan. Serious interest in
Yeah. Look.
Frimpong.
Yeah. The from Bond seems to be done. Look, very small fee for what you're getting, I think. So like Belford Bradley can battle it out there, but I think Frimpong as well as can play further forward as well, and he is blisteringly quick. So, yeah, delighted with that one and how quickly I think Liverpool have done that in the past number of years. Like the identify player, they do their homework, and it's kind of there's no real big dramas around it. It's just done and dusted, and like it looked as if the Kirk is on, which I think we talked about in the pod that that's been a huge link for the last 2.5 months that something was going to happen there. So they're in talk to them at the moment. And like if you look at getting a left and right back in, potentially both could be starters next season, both with blistering pace and quality attached to them. And if you're getting both of them for under 70 million, like there's, you
Crazy, yeah.
can't
Serious
argue
business.
with that. So yeah, delighted with if they get the Kirkers over the line. And as I said, there's a few lads in, of course, then that are going to be getting the door, getting the gate as well. And I think there's probably look watching the game even last night. I love this, I believe, and I talked about that on the podcast before. I just think that Liverpool don't have a player really like him. And just that power, that energy. We do have other players that have power and energy, of course, but I just think that he's the next golden goose at Brighton. He's the next one that's going to go for a huge fee, I think, and he's very young as well. I just think he's an excellent player, and he was unbelievable, like a Rolls Royce again last night, watching him in Brighton midfield. So I'd love us to go for somebody like that. I do think we need another player in the midfield area, but so far anyway, like to have two transfers sewn up before the season is even finished or near enough, like is excellent bit of business.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely very efficient as usual from Liverpool in terms of transfers. But I suppose, Dan, we'll jump on to our fantasy football, our Super Six,
Mm.
and see how we're going on because it's getting to squeaky bum time up at the lead, and there's been a bit of a bit of a shock, especially in the Super Six. Anyway,
Yeah,
Alex is it Alex after taking the lead?
yeah, Alex. So my tutor. So as it stands, going into I think this is the final week of it. I think final weekend. So Alex is on 470. So he's hit the front. I don't know whether Richard was ever not first or that I can remember. So he's 3 points off him now. So it's very tight. I'm back at 9 points off, which I think barring now you damn three or four correct scores. I can't see myself overturning that, but yeah, it's really between the three. I think Eamon Carney is in fourth there on 459. He's 11 off, and I just think at this stage you're going to end up with a couple of the same correct scores unless you
Yeah,
just go kind of mad. The final day of the
yeah.
season can be mad, so it can pull up a few mad results. But yeah, so look, 3 points in it. It looks like it's going to be a Coulter who will be getting the cold hard cash of 100 quid. Is it 100 quid?
A
Yeah.
hundred euro cold hard cash is right, Dan. It's going to me in some regard, anyways, the way it's
Yeah.
looking.
It's some more
Um,
of attrition though, isn't it, Master? Like it is, like it's just relentless.
it's nearly the remembering is nearly harder than, than anything else. We just
Yeah.
get to the point where we just forget it. But no,
So that's
it's been a
yeah.
long season, and fair to him, that's I hope. I don't know. I'm kind of hoping that Alex gets doesn't take this one as well because he's taking the lead in the fantasy, or he's fairly up there in the fantasy football, isn't he?
Yeah, the fantasy football is extremely tight now. Look, you have games tonight, so you can't kind of say who'll be leading on into the final day. But Alex does have a 7 point lead before tonight's game going into that. Who's looking for back to back jerseys in fantasy football? So it's very tight himself. Podrick, Clark. Who was the third one? Sorry, no, he's oh hang on, sorry, no, he's 1 point behind going into that's right. He's 1 point behind going into tonight's game. But he has a couple of City players, I think he's a couple of defenders. It's very tight, like all the players that play. Alex though has Eze, who no one else at the top has had the last number of weeks, and he's been the one that's done the damage really, like because nobody else owns him. So he's 1 point behind Brian O'Sullivan, and Patrick Clark then is back. He's 8 points like off. So I do think it's between the three. And in fairness, like Patrick Clark has been another one who's been up there for an awful lot of the season as well. So it's a harder one to call that, Moss. It's like our Champions League and the Premier League as to who's going to get the spot. So I wouldn't like to be calling that one now, but I suppose if you were to go by the form book, Alex has been there and done that. He knows how to get over the line.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, but
Yeah.
he won't be putting the writing on the back of the jersey just yet, so he still has a bit to fight
No.
for. But
So I'll just fire out the our last weekend games, our Moss. Me and you can just do them here between us. So let me see. So we have Newcastle, Everton, Moss. Would you fancy an out?
it's a hard one. I'd say that I just feel like a draw. It's kind of end the season. Both of them kind of are secure enough where they are. Suppose Newcastle probably want the win to secure third, but um, they're at home as well. Um, Go 2-1 Newcastle.
Okay. I'll take Villa United. I think Villa again. Don't know how tomorrow night's going to go, but I think either way, I just can't see United being so bad in the league. You can't have any faith that they get a result at all. And just Villa have been.
And Villa need that win. I
You
suppose a
need
lot will
that win.
depend
Yeah,
on tomorrow night as well. Like
yeah,
if it's a
yeah,
team like devastated after losing, maybe they'll go out with a point to prove. If they've won
yeah.
and they've been celebrating for 2 days, they don't really care. They're already going to be shit 16th in the league anyway. So
I
why
think Villa.
change?
I think Villa will win maybe 2-1. So let me see.
Do you think Villa, like, if you had to, before, I know I'm interjecting here, but
Yeah,
if you
no.
had to call it, who do you think out of Villa, City, Forest, Chelsea? I'd say Newcastle as well. Like Chelsea,
Yeah, it's hard.
what are you putting your hat on for the last?
It's just hard with the game tonight because I don't think City will go to Fulham and win. You see on Sunday, I don't see them winning away
Okay,
at Fulham. So it's like if they beat Bournemouth tonight, I think they'll get one, won't they? They'll pretty much be secure, you'd imagine, because Forest play
yeah,
Chelsea, don't they?
yeah, Forest and
So
Chelsea then.
yeah, but I do think that City will get. I think City will beat Bournemouth tonight. So I think City will take the spot, Newcastle and at Arsenal, and then I just think Villa will go to Old Trafford and win just based on all that we've seen so far this season and just how good Villa have been. I think they've kind of come through a few kind of patches where they haven't been so good, but they in big games recently, like they barred a City one, which was a late winner, wasn't it? Like for City, it's definitely. I think Villa. I'd like Villa. I think it's more of a like than a.
Mm.
But I think Forest and
Yeah, I
Chelsea will
think
miss
goal
out.
difference could be a big hindrance. Their
Yeah,
goal difference is by far the worst. So if it
yeah,
stays as tight
I,
as it is, which you would
I,
expect, goal difference
yeah.
probably will come into play.
I'm going to go Villa just because I think they'll go to Old Trafford and win. I think Forest and Chelsea will lose out. And that one actually is one of our Super Six games. You can take that one, Moss.
Forest and Chelsea.
Yeah.
It's in Stamford Bridge.
No, no, Forest at home. Yeah,
Forest at home.
yeah.
It's some hell of a game. I still feel like Chelsea are going to nick it, and it pains me to say it because I would love for Forest after the season they've had to get it, but I just
Mm.
have the sinking fear that Sancho or someone ridiculous who's done nothing all season will show up for one game and get Chelsea through. I hope I'm wrong. I really do hope I'm wrong, but I just have a feeling it'll be like tight, tense. One goal might nick it, and I'm leaning
Mm.
towards Chelsea for that one.
So we 1-0 Chelsea.
1-0 Chelsea, yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Do you agree? Do you agree, or are you leaning Forest?
If I'm to go off what I watched, even just on the eye test, I thought Chelsea, of course, Jackson is out, but just they weren't pulling up many trees against United either for a game at home that they needed to win. I thought they were very average,
Yeah.
uh, and they're very much when you look at them, the balance their team is all wrong. I think it's that over the top at the moment. There's players playing kind of out of position. Your man George was playing up front the last night as well. He's not a striker. He was playing up there. They've played Neto up there as well. It's a bit all over the shop where I just think Forest are solid and you just know what you're going to get with them pretty much, in regards to the way they'll play. I don't know. Yeah, I do. I think both of them miss out. I think it could be like a draw. Like I think Villa will win, and then two might draw, so like a 1-1 or something. Yeah, but like that, as you said, it's tight. Could Palmer? You were talking about players who haven't done anything really in a long time. Could Palmer go and pull a performance out of the hat and score a winner? But if you were looking at the two teams on paper now, you'd say it wouldn't be Palmer. You'd be looking at Gibbs White because Gibbs White's been exceptional. He's
He's
been
been
the
unbelievable. Yeah.
yeah.
And he'll be another
Um,
one who'll be on the move to City
yeah,
more than likely.
well, that seems to be there's definitely a lot of interest in him. Yeah, and he is a very good player. Speaking of City, I'll take the City Fulham game. So I've gone one. I think 1-1. I don't see City going there and winning on the final day. Whether they'll need to win or not is another thing. But
And
yeah,
Fulham will be looking for a win to
mm,
give them a shot at European football in the Conference
yeah,
League.
it's eight, isn't it? Eight.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
eighth. So
Um.
Brighton's win the last day really kind of gives them a good shot. They're up to eighth, and they
Yeah.
have like a 3 point cushion to Brentford and a 4 point cushion to Fulham.
And
So
some
Fulham
season, in fairness, for a 34-year-old manager, like it's
Yeah,
You know,
it was rocky at times, but they're really the last couple of games in the season, they've well, the last kind of 8 games after they had that bad defeat to Forest, they've really
mm,
responded well and have been kind of making steady progress since then. So
yeah.
yeah, after 200 million
Um,
though, you'd expect them to improve.
yeah, yeah. Let me see what have we got left then. So yeah, you go on. You take Liverpool Palace there. What do you reckon?
Oh, talking about a non-existent game like Liverpool on celebration mode, Palace in celebration mode, both delighted about
Yeah,
their season.
yeah,
Um, it's is it in Anfield?
yeah. It could be entertaining though, based on what you just said. It could just be like a kind of a
A free flow, go
zero
enjoy it,
fucks
play.
given.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
a 2-1 to Liverpool, I'd say.
Okay. And I'll take the last one, which is Arsenal are away at Southampton, and I'm going to go for 4-0 Arsenal. Arsenal will
Go
just
on,
get
Dan. Just
away
go for
there.
Southampton. Go on, give them a win.
Yeah, no, I think they'll just Arsenal have looked good. In fairness, they still seem to be playing with a decent amount of intensity, and I'm sick. I messaged it into the group of the weekend after watching Everton Southampton. I've had enough of watching Southampton in the Premier
Yeah,
League.
you said this game. So
I've
I'm sick of them. I can't wait for Southampton to
I'm
be gone.
just
I know.
sick. I'm just sick of yeah. In particular, I've just seen them watch a lot of games involving Southampton, and I had enough. And do you know what? I fucking had enough West Ham as well. Like honest to God, that game at the weekend against Forest is just it's bleak if you're a Hammers fan. I think like they've which I forgot about. I don't know if you forgot about it, but they spent a serious amount of money in the summer,
They
and
invested a load of money, bought a load of bar like
yeah,
I suppose Somerville was a good purchase, but he's been injured, and
yeah.
like
Oh, they're
Fulcrack is
just
looking like the most ridiculous fucking money. He's constantly
yeah.
injured.
But
But
Potter's
he
come
looks
in
good
and
when he's playing. But
But Potter's come in and like his stock definitely has anything but risen.
yeah,
He went in there after the Chelsea experiment, and I had big hopes thinking, Jesus, this now they can get down and get things going. But if they hadn't got going,
no, they
they'd
haven't.
be
It's a
they
funny situation
oh,
that it's kind
yeah,
of gone under the radar too. It's kind of like there hasn't been massive outpouring of about is he under pressure. Like there's been bits and bobs, but like for considering how shit they've been, um, like I
yeah.
thought there'd be more. Like, but
Well, he's one that does. It suppose he falls into the bracket of if it starts badly and you get to like the first international break there in October and they're struggling for wins, he'd definitely be under it then. And West Ham
yeah,
fans will not be accepting that moving forward. But it's not as if they don't have a few good players, like, do you know what I mean? That as well. They have Bob Horley, and just to watch them, I've watched them a few times recently, basically because I've got Bowen in my fantasy football, to be honest. But they're painful to watch. They really are. It's like they're very much just a moment's team. If Bowen does something, they might make something. But like they're a team that lack pace. Paqueta's a strange one. He's been in and out of the team because when he plays, he's a quality player. I don't know how much longer he's going to be playing football for, mind you, but
yeah,
you can see why City were interested in him. Like he has a real touch of quality. But when you think of the Moyes side, where they were solid in most weeks, they were solid. I know they took a few hidings, but the majority of the time they were solid. Hard bet. Defenders like Zuma and Craig Dawson. You look at some of the defending that are at this season. And their goalkeeper as well, Areola. It's just you see, I don't know if you've seen the goal the weekend. Basically, he passed it straight out to Nottingham Forest player, just gave it straight to him pretty much. And
yeah. I
he's
saw it.
done
Yeah,
yeah, he's done a bit of that this season. He's been anything but solid. So yeah, they're just look. I know I'm ranting a bit about West Ham, but just they're another one there. That uh, I think need a serious look at themselves this summer.
cold
That
hard
Super
look at
Six,
themselves and see what they can
yeah,
fix in
yeah,
the 2 months in between. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's our
It's
Super Six,
mad.
is it, Dan?
Yeah, that's our Super Six. Yeah, and that's our fancy football. As I said, games tonight into the final weekend. Then so there'll be a lot of punts. I've been punting the last couple of weeks on differentials as captains. I messaged my good mate Mossy there and asked him. Said, "Look, I'm going to captain Palmer. Do you reckon United probably play the kids tonight?" And Mossy's like, "Yeah, yeah, should do. Fucking nearly full strength." And I looked at it, I
Oh
was like,
yeah,
I know United are bad, but like Palmer's not going to have a field day here. Like it's just not going to be happening. So anyway, yeah,
yeah.
it's what it
I
is.
think the Palmer boat is gone. Dan, it should have been gone from about February. I'd say, but
What's going on, do you
yeah,
reckon? Do you think he got the new contract? What was it, a 10-year one or whatever they gave him? And then I don't know whether or not there was a bit of messing going on with Maresca or something like that. Like, he just doesn't look, even when you watch him, his body language on the pitch. Not sure. I know he was getting a lot of flack in the
Yeah,
media
I
and
don't
stuff as
know.
well.
It came after Maresca. It seemed to really like Maresca said, if you don't do it, I'm going to basically take you off. If you don't do what you're supposed to be doing in your position, you're going to be taken off. And it seemed like that freedom that he was playing has slowly been ebbed away
Mm,
into system, which is very what Maresca is about.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and I don't know.
He
I
needs a
don't
free
see it.
role,
Like
like Eze, doesn't he? Like
he
Palmer, just
needs
let him
that
go and play.
freedom, and
Yeah.
you just facilitate him. Like you facilitate him so that you bring out his best attributes, and
Mm,
it just hasn't been there. I suppose part of it is your life off the pitch has completely changed in the last 18 months as well.
yeah.
He went from being able to
He's
go anywhere he wants to being like a very recognizable figure, and um, I suppose it's the first time really he's had a dip in form
yeah.
since he's taken off. Like
I think that Maresca though is another one like Potter there that you're like if they don't get Champions League, I don't think that gets is getting enough because of course they're still in the race. But when you think of where they were at the start of the season and the drop off and how huge it's been, like to then not even get Champions League
yeah,
football with the amount of money as well that they've spent in the last couple of years, like I think he's another one that if it started badly next season, he could be under pressure too because regardless of the Conference League. Like that's not going to really soften the cough for too many Chelsea fans. I don't think if they're playing Europa League football next season because it's looked for so much of the season like they were shooing to be in the Champions League. And I think it's amazing though with players. You look at Palmer, you look at Foden this season, like Foden, and you're just like it's just amazing how it can change. Even look at
it's
Salah second
amazing
half
the
of the
drop
season.
off
I
that
mean,
can happen.
there can just happen. You know what I mean? Like where for players where they're at this like level where they're unplayable, and then all of a sudden you're like kind of any question should they be playing?
Yeah.
You know,
No, there is a debate. Where does that come from, and is that an external influence? Is it
mm,
the sheer volume of games that you're trying to
mm,
put your body through that you just can't maintain that level? But um, right now, my only sole focus is can United get through 90/120 minutes and actually put in a performance and get over the line. And that's what's been circling around my head for the last. Like I basically ignored. I didn't even basically watch Chelsea game. I couldn't watch. I was like, I'm not watching this. It's going to be shit. And this is just like someone's going to get injured. I'm just Wednesday's the day. We
mm.
got to watch it. We got to do it. And that's so focused as a
So
United fan.
what's your prediction?
I still feel like Spurs are going to win. I have a
Oh,
good mate.
jeez.
I have a good mate in work, and I was saying to him about like that. What did he think or whatever? And he's a Spurs fan, and he just looks at me and goes, "Spurs are bad. United are shit. Spurs are bad. United are shit. They're less shit. They might win." And that was the extent of
Yeah,
his breakdown of it. So uh, part of me, the only thing that softens the blow is if Spurs win would be I keep calling him Poch. If Ange goes in and does his mic drop moment and says "fuck you all," I said I'd win it in the
yeah,
second season, and I did.
yeah.
But no, it's Bilbao or bust for both teams, and
It really is. Yeah.
hoping it's not. I'm just hoping it's not us.
Yeah. You'd imagine like that probably Spurs will dominate the ball. It'll be easier on the eye. But I can just see United on the counter, Spurs lead gaps everywhere as they do. And I could just see United on the counter. Nico. I think it'll be tight though. I don't think it'll be this kind of a shootout 3-2 or anything like that. No, we've been wrong
I,
before. We've been wrong
I
before.
I take a
Uh,
1-0. These
yeah,
final forwards and stuff. I don't know
yeah.
if I can handle too much more of that. But
I go 1-0, 1-0, like 1-0 United. I think it'd be tight
yeah,
and
I think
nervy.
whoever gets the first goal, it
Yeah,
need neither. Well, I suppose, but neither time or side are great at defending the lead either. So it's hard to know. But I just think confidence wise, I don't know how much resilience they have to come back if in kind of an adverse position or it's going against you. I don't think either of them kind of are able to dig in and turn around. So, if
yeah,
whoever gets that first goal, I think is going to be vitally important. But
yeah. Well, look, best of luck with
we'll
that
wait
one.
and see. We'll wait and see, and I'll have every candle, holy or not, lighting tomorrow, and just to get us over the line. But we better go. We better wrap it up, Dan.
Yeah,
And thanks a million for everyone for watching, joining in, following us, etc. Join in next week. We'll do a bit of an end of year review. We'll know the outcomes. I'll either be laughing or crying. Dan will still be smugly sitting in the corner looking at Liverpool add to their already talented squad. Deck is looking for a whole rebuild, and Howard is just hoping they're not going to be second next year. All right. Thanks for watching, guys.
thanks,
Thanks a million,
folks.
Dan. And we'll talk to you soon.